What if I told you that one of Europe's greatest military heroes was rejected by the French court, not because he lacked talent, but because King Louis XIV discovered a secret so scandalous it could destroy kingdoms? Prince Eugene of Savoy, the man who would reshape European history, who would become the terror of French armies, was hiding something that made the Sun King himself recoil in absolute disgust. Picture this scene that would change the course of European history: the golden halls of Versailles, autumn 1683. Thousands of candles flickered against mirrors that reflected a universe of secrets, lies, and forbidden desires. In this palace where power and passion danced behind golden masks, where courtiers whispered poison into royal ears, and where a single rumor could end a life, young Eugene François knelt before the most powerful monarch in the world, his knees pressed against cold marble floors that had witnessed countless humiliations, countless falls from grace. He had come seeking glory, seeking acceptance, seeking a place in the French military that his noble birth should have guaranteed. Instead, he found himself face to face with a king who had uncovered whispers about his most intimate preferences. The kind of preferences that in this era of religious fanaticism and royal paranoia could lead to the scaffold, to public disgrace, to death itself by burning or hanging. The young prince's hands trembled uncontrollably as he awaited the king's decision. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the palace's autumn chill. Around him, dozens of courtiers held their breath, their silk-clad bodies frozen in anticipation. Some already knew the rumors that had been circulating through palace corridors like a deadly plague. Some had witnessed Eugene's stolen glances at certain young men at court, conversations that carried dangerous undertones of forbidden desire, midnight encounters that spoke of appetites that could destroy empires. The atmosphere was suffocating. Every eye in that vast room bore down on Eugene like daggers. Whispers had already reached the king's ear. Whispers about the prince's unusual, about letters intercepted by royal spy, about behaviors that violated every sacred law of God. And "You are not what France needs," Louis XIV, his voice cutting through Eugene's soul like a blade dipped in Arctic ice. But those words carried a meaning far deeper than military rejection. A coded dismissal that would haunt Eugene's nightmares forever. The Sun King had heard every rumor circulating through the palace corridors. He had studied the reports from his network of spies, the whispered accusations from jealous nobles who suspected the devastating truth about Prince Eugene's midnight visits to certain forbidden chambers. In that moment of crushing public humiliation, with dozens of hostile eyes watching his complete downfall, Eugene made a choice that would echo through centuries and reshape the map of Europe. If France wouldn't accept him for who he truly was, he would become their most feared and implacable enemy. But the price of this transformation would be a lifetime of hiding, of loving in shadows, of wearing masks that grew heavier with each passing year. This is the story of a prince who conquered nations but could never conquer the fear of being discovered. A man whose greatest victories were won while carrying the most dangerous secret of the 17th century. If you're ready to uncover the forbidden truth that history tried to bury, subscribe now, because what you're about to discover will change everything you thought you knew about power, war, and forbidden love. But first, you need to understand the scandalous circumstances of his birth that would mark him as an outsider from his very first breath. Eugene's story of forbidden desire didn't begin with his own secrets. It started with his mother's scandalous reputation that marked him as cursed from his very first breath. Olympia Mancini, his mother, was no ordinary noblewoman. She was whispered to be a witch, a poisoner, a woman whose very touch could kill kings and whose children carried the mark of damnation. Born in Paris on October 18th, 1663, little Eugene François entered a world already poisoned against him by forces beyond his control. His mother had been the mistress of King Louis XIV himself, but their passionate affair had ended in the most catastrophic way imaginable. Olympia had been accused of attempting to murder the king through black magic and poison, charges so serious and terrifying that she fled France in the dead of night like a criminal, abandoning her innocent children to save her own cursed life. Imagine the psychological torture of growing up knowing that your mother was branded a sorceress by the most powerful court in Europe, that noble families crossed themselves when they saw you approaching, that servants whispered prayers to protect themselves from your very presence. Eugene's childhood was spent living in the suffocating shadow of this scandal, watching helplessly as other children were pulled away from him by terrified governesses who genuinely believed that evil ran in his blood like a hereditary disease. The palace where he grew up felt more like a prison than a home. Corridors that should have echoed with laughter instead whispered with accusations. Every meal was eaten under suspicious gazes, every lesson interrupted by fearful glances from tutors who wondered if they were teaching the devil's own child. But there was something else marking Eugene as different. Something even more dangerous and damning than his mother's reputation for witchcraft. While other boys his age chased servant girls through palace corridors and boasted about future conquests, Eugene found himself drawn to entirely different pursuits. His eyes would linger on the young male courtiers, with their silk stockings and powdered faces. His heart would race when certain handsome boys smiled at him during dancing lessons. His dreams were filled with images that would have horrified his confessors. At the tender age of 8, he already knew with terrifying clarity that he was carrying a secret that could destroy not just him, but his entire family line. In a world where men who loved men were burned alive in public squares while crowds cheered, where the church preached that such desires came straight from Satan's own heart, Eugene learned to hide his true nature behind an increasingly sophisticated mask of perfect nobility and religious devotion. His father, Prince Eugene Maurice of Savoy-Carignan, barely acknowledged his existence. The man was too consumed with managing the devastating political fallout from his wife's disgrace, too busy trying to salvage what remained of the family's reputation to notice that his youngest son was developing inclinations that could bring even greater shame upon their house. But the most devastating blow was yet to come, and it would force Eugene to flee everything he had ever known. The rejection at Versailles became Eugene's salvation in disguise. Humiliated, broken, but burning with fury, he made a decision that would reshape European history. He would offer his sword to Austria, France's greatest enemy. But what Eugene didn't expect was that the imperial court in Vienna would become the first place where he could breathe freely and love dangerously. In 1683, at age 20, Eugene arrived in Vienna, carrying nothing but his noble name and a heart full of secrets. The Habsburg court was a labyrinth of intrigue, but unlike Versailles, it offered something Eugene had never experienced, the possibility of finding others like himself. Emperor Leopold I, desperate for military talent to fight the advancing Ottoman Empire, didn't care about whispered rumors. He needed warriors, not saints. Vienna's court was a revelation. Here, in the shadow of constant war, traditional morality bent under the weight of survival, Eugene discovered a hidden network of courtiers, officers, and nobles who shared his forbidden inclinations. For the first time in his life, he wasn't alone with his terrible secret. It was in Vienna that Eugene first tasted the intoxicating mixture of power and forbidden pleasure. During late-night strategy meetings, his eyes would meet those of certain young officers. Coded conversations became an art form, a touch that lasted a second too long during a map briefing, a smile exchanged across a crowded war room, letters passed through trusted intermediaries, written in language that appeared military but carried deeper meanings. But Eugene was playing the most dangerous game imaginable. Even in the more liberal Habsburg court, discovery meant death. The Catholic Church's influence was absolute, and sodomy remained a capital offense. Eugene learned to compartmentalize his life with surgical precision. Warrior by day, lover by night, always walking the razor's edge between glory and destruction. His first real relationship began with a young Hungarian cavalry officer named István. Their affair was conducted in the shadows of preparation for war against the Ottomans. Stolen moments in supply tents, urgent kisses in empty stables, love letters hidden inside military dispatches. The danger only intensified their passion. They were gambling everything for fleeting moments of genuine intimacy. But Eugene's military genius was already emerging, and with it came a terrible realization. The higher he climbed in the imperial hierarchy, the more dangerous his secret became. Success meant scrutiny. Glory meant that every aspect of his life would be examined by enemies eager to destroy him. As Eugene prepared for his first major military campaign, he faced an agonizing choice: pursue the love that made him feel human, or abandon it forever to protect the career that could make him immortal. The Ottoman siege of Vienna was approaching, and Eugene would soon discover that war could provide the perfect cover for the most dangerous romance of his life. The siege of Vienna in 1683 became Eugene's stage for the greatest performance of his life. While Ottoman cannons thundered against the city walls day and night, while the fate of Christian Europe hung in the balance, Eugene discovered that war was the perfect mask for forbidden love. But it would also bring him face to face with the most dangerous temptation he had ever encountered. As the massive Ottoman forces surrounded Vienna like a noose tightening around the city's throat, Eugene threw himself into military planning with an intensity that bordered on complete obsession. His strategic brilliance began to shine like a beacon in the darkness of war. But those closest to him noticed something else entirely: the way his eyes would desperately search the ranks of soldiers for certain handsome faces, the way he would find excuses to linger near the tent of a particular Polish cavalry captain named Alexander Kowalski, whose piercing blue eyes and warrior's grace had captured Eugene's heart completely. The brutal siege created an atmosphere where normal social rules and moral constraints dissolved like smoke in the wind. Men lived in impossibly close quarters, shared everything from food to fears, depended on each other for survival in ways that peacetime society would never have permitted. In this crucible of constant death and destruction, Eugene found opportunities for intimacy that the rigid protocols of peacetime court life would never have allowed. Midnight strategy sessions became perfect cover for stolen moments of tenderness. Medical visits to wounded officers provided convenient excuses for private conversations that had nothing to do with military affairs. The chaos and confusion of battle created precious shadows where forbidden relationships could flourish like secret gardens. But Eugene was walking a psychological tightrope over an abyss that grew deeper with every passing day. His growing military reputation made him simultaneously more powerful and infinitely more vulnerable to discovery and disgrace. Every victory brought new scrutiny from rival officers who would love nothing more than to discover his devastating secret and use it to destroy him completely. The higher he climbed in the imperial hierarchy, the more dangerous and precarious his double life became. During one particularly brutal night of fighting, when Ottoman cannons had breached the outer walls and enemy soldiers poured through like a deadly flood, Eugene and Alexander found themselves alone in a captured Ottoman outpost, surrounded by the acrid smell of gunpowder and the metallic stench of death, with the screams of dying men echoing in the distance. They shared a kiss that could have cost them both their lives if discovered by the wrong eyes. But in that moment of stolen passion, Eugene felt more truly alive than he ever had on any battlefield. The psychological toll of living this double existence was becoming absolutely unbearable. Eugene began suffering from what we might now recognize as severe anxiety and crippling depression. He would spend countless hours staring at military maps, not planning strategy, but wondering if this battle, this siege, this war would finally be the one where his secret was exposed and his world came crashing down around him. Tell me in the comments what part of this story shocks you the most so far. The fact that history's greatest military strategist was living a secret gay life, or that he was conducting forbidden relationships literally on the battlefields of Europe while fighting for the survival of Christian civilization. As Vienna's walls finally held against the massive Ottoman assault, Eugene's reputation soared to unprecedented heights. But this success would soon threaten to destroy everything he had built, because someone had been watching his every move. Victory at Vienna should have been Eugene's moment of pure triumph, but it became the beginning of his most dangerous period yet. With the Ottoman threat temporarily defeated, the imperial court returned to its peacetime obsessions: gossip, intrigue, and destroying reputations. Eugene's secret network of lovers was about to face its greatest test. The officer who had been watching Eugene was Colonel Friedrich von Seckendorff-Aberdar, a man whose own frustrated desires had twisted into venomous hatred for those brave enough to pursue what he could never allow himself to feel. Friedrich had spent months documenting every glance, every private meeting, every suspicious friendship in Eugene's circle. His detailed journals read like a roadmap to destruction. But Eugene was blind to this growing threat because he had fallen deeper than ever before. After Alexander was transferred to the Hungarian front, Eugene met someone who would become both his salvation and his potential ruin. Marco Benedetti, an Italian diplomat's son, whose dark eyes and poetic soul awakened something in Eugene that pure physical attraction never could. Their relationship began during a winter ball at the Hofburg Palace. While Vienna celebrated another military victory, Eugene and Marco found themselves alone on a moonlit balcony, sharing wine and words that grew more intimate with each passing moment. Marco spoke of Italian poetry, of love that dared not speak its name, of artists and princes who had loved men throughout history. For the first time, Eugene felt he had found someone who understood not just his desires, but his soul. What followed was the most passionate and reckless period of Eugene's life. They would meet in Marco's private apartments near St. Stephen's Cathedral, where ancient stone walls kept their secrets safe from prying ears. Eugene would arrive disguised as a simple merchant, wearing common clothes that transformed him from prince to lover. In those stolen hours, he experienced a happiness so complete, it felt like a betrayal of everything he had been taught about sin and salvation. But their love letters, written in a code they thought unbreakable, were being intercepted. Friedrich had corrupted one of Marco's servants with promises of gold and threats of exposure. Every passionate declaration, every plan for secret meetings, every vulnerable confession of love was being copied and stored as evidence for the perfect moment to strike. The relationship intensified Eugene's internal torment. By day, he commanded armies and advised emperors. By night, he surrendered completely to forbidden love. The psychological split was tearing him apart. He began experiencing what we might now recognize as panic attacks during important military briefings, moments where the weight of his deception became so crushing he could barely breathe. Eugene started making dangerous mistakes. He would slip Marco's name into casual conversations. He began requesting diplomatic missions that would take him to cities where Marco was stationed. Most dangerously, he started trusting people he shouldn't trust, believing that his military successes had made him untouchable. The spring of 1687 brought Eugene his greatest military triumph yet at the Battle of Mohacs, where he helped destroy an Ottoman army and secure Hungary for the Habsburgs. But as Vienna celebrated his victory, Colonel Friedrich was preparing to unveil evidence that could not just destroy Eugene, but trigger a scandal that would rock the foundations of the Holy Roman Empire itself. The whispers began, like poison, spreading through Vienna's veins. By the summer of 1687, Colonel Friedrich had strategically planted seeds of suspicion throughout the imperial court. Each rumor carefully crafted to sound like concerned observation rather than malicious gossip. Eugene's enemies were gathering like vultures, and he had no idea how close he was to complete destruction. It started with seemingly innocent comments during court dinners. Have you noticed how Prince Eugene never seems interested in the ladies presented to him? Curious how he spends so much time with that Italian diplomat's son. Strange that such a war hero shows no inclination toward marriage or producing heirs. Each whisper was a blade cutting deeper into Eugene's reputation. Friedrich had recruited a network of spies among the palace servants. Chambermaids reported on letters hidden in Eugene's private quarters. Stable boys noted the timing of his midnight rides. Kitchen staff observed which meals were prepared for two when Eugene claimed to be dining alone. Every detail of his private life was being catalogued and weaponized. The psychological warfare was masterful. Friedrich never made direct accusations. That would have been too crude, too easy to defend against. Instead, he created an atmosphere of creeping suspicion where Eugene's every action was viewed through a lens of doubt. When Eugene promoted talented young officers, whispers suggested he was showing favoritism for handsome faces. When he spent time mentoring junior cavalry officers, court gossips wondered about his true motivations. Eugene began to feel the walls closing in. Conversations would stop abruptly when he entered rooms. Former allies became distant and formal. Invitations to social gatherings dwindled. The loneliness was suffocating. He was becoming isolated precisely at the moment when he needed support most desperately. Marco sensed the danger and begged Eugene to be more careful. Their secret meetings became increasingly risky as Friedrich's network tightened around them. They started communicating through a complex system involving sympathetic priests who would pass messages during confession, believing that even Friedrich wouldn't dare violate the sanctity of the confessional. They were wrong. The breaking point came during a state banquet celebrating Eugene's latest victory. As he sat at the high table beside Emperor Leopold I, Eugene noticed how other nobles avoided eye contact, how conversations died when he approached, how even his military colleagues seemed uncomfortable in his presence. The paranoia was becoming unbearable. Was he imagining threats, or were they absolutely real? That night, alone in his chambers, Eugene made a devastating discovery. Hidden among his personal papers was a letter he had never written, addressed to Marco, containing explicit declarations of love written in handwriting that looked remarkably similar to his own. It was a forgery, but so convincing that even Eugene himself had to examine it closely to detect the deception. Someone was preparing to frame him with evidence that could survive any investigation. Panic consumed him. If forged letters this convincing could be planted in his rooms, what other evidence might already exist? How many servants had been bought? How many friends had been turned against him? Eugene realized he was fighting a war on multiple fronts, against foreign enemies on distant battlefields and against domestic enemies who wanted to destroy him from within. The trap was nearly ready to spring, and Eugene's greatest enemy was about to play his final, devastating card. The winter of 1688 brought Eugene face to face with a choice that would define the rest of his life. As Friedrich's trap prepared to snap shut, Eugene met the one person who could either save him or destroy him completely. Count Alessandro di Cagliostro, a mysterious Venetian nobleman whose arrival in Vienna would turn Eugene's world upside down and force him to gamble everything for love. Alessandro was everything Eugene had never dared to dream of. Intelligent, fearless, and utterly unashamed of his desires. Unlike Marco, who trembled at every shadow, Alessandro seemed to treat the danger as an intoxicating game. He had survived scandals in Venice, Rome, and Paris, always managing to emerge unscathed through a combination of political cunning and sheer audacity. Their first meeting occurred during a diplomatic reception where Alessandro was presenting credentials from the Venetian Republic. Eugene watched, mesmerized, as this elegant stranger navigated the treacherous currents of Habsburg court politics with the skill of a master musician. When their eyes met across the crowded reception hall, Eugene felt something he had never experienced before, the electric recognition of meeting his equal. Alessandro approached Eugene with breathtaking boldness. "Your Highness," he said, his voice carrying just enough intimacy to be dangerous, "I've heard remarkable stories about your military genius. Perhaps you could show me the maps of your greatest victories." It was an invitation wrapped in professional interest, but Eugene heard the deeper invitation beneath the words. What followed was the most intense and reckless romance of Eugene's life. Alessandro had rented a private villa outside Vienna, claiming he needed a quiet place to conduct sensitive diplomatic business. In reality, it became their secret sanctuary, where they could love freely, without the suffocating weight of court protocols and religious surveillance. Their relationship was built on a foundation of mutual understanding about danger and desire. Alessandro had developed techniques for conducting forbidden affairs that seemed almost magical in their sophistication. He had contacts throughout Europe's underground networks of men who loved men, systems for secure communication that had evolved over decades of necessity. But Alessandro brought more than just passion. He brought intelligence about Friedrich's growing conspiracy. Through his diplomatic connections, he had learned that Eugene's enemy was planning to present evidence to Emperor Leopold I during the upcoming Easter celebrations, timing the revelation for maximum dramatic impact and political damage. "My darling prince," Alessandro whispered during one of their clandestine, his fingers tracing Eugene's face in the candlelight. They want to destroy you, not because you love men, but because your military genius makes you too powerful. Your sexuality is just the weapon they've chosen. Eugene realized that Alessandro was right. This wasn't really about morality or religion. It was about eliminating a political rival who had become too successful, too influential, too dangerous to the established order. Friedrich had found the perfect weapon to destroy Eugene while appearing to defend Christian virtue. As spring approached, Eugene faced an impossible decision. He could flee Vienna immediately with Alessandro, abandoning his military career, but potentially saving his life and freedom. Or he could stay and fight, risking everything to protect not just himself, but the network of vulnerable men who had found safety in his protection. But Alessandro had one more devastating secret to reveal, information that would force Eugene to make the most dangerous gamble of his life. Alessandro's devastating secret shattered every assumption Eugene had made about trust, loyalty, and love. In the flickering candlelight of their secret villa, with spring rain drumming against diamond-paned windows, Alessandro revealed the truth that would change everything. He wasn't just a Venetian diplomat seeking romance. He was an agent working for multiple masters. And Eugene had walked directly into the most sophisticated honey trap in European espionage history. "My beloved prince," Alessandro said, his voice breaking with what seemed like genuine anguish. "I never intended to fall in love with you. This was supposed to be simple intelligence gathering, but now..." He pulled a leather portfolio from beneath the bed where they had just made passionate love. Inside were copies of every letter Eugene had ever written, detailed reports of their intimate conversations, and most terrifyingly, architectural plans of Habsburg military fortifications that Eugene had shared during their pillow talk. Eugene's blood turned to ice as the magnitude of his betrayal became clear. Alessandro had been gathering intelligence for France, for Venice, possibly even for the Ottoman Empire. Every kiss, every whispered endearment, every moment of vulnerability had been carefully catalogued and transformed into weapons against the Habsburg Empire. But the cruelest twist was yet to come. Alessandro revealed that Colonel Friedrich had known about the spy operation from the beginning. In fact, Friedrich had helped orchestrate it, believing that catching Eugene in actual treason would be far more devastating than merely exposing his sexual preferences. They had been playing a game within a game, and Eugene had been the unwitting pawn. "They planned this perfectly," Alessandro continued, tears streaming down his face. "Friedrich gives you to them as a traitor, eliminates you as a rival, and positions himself as the loyal officer who saved the empire from a homosexual spy. 3 victories with 1 betrayal." Eugene felt his world collapsing around him like a house of cards. Every military success, every strategic triumph, every moment of happiness had been built on foundations of sand. Worse, he realized that his network of friends and lovers throughout the imperial army were now in mortal danger. If he fell, they would all fall with him. But Alessandro wasn't finished. With trembling hands, he revealed the final piece of the conspiracy. Emperor Leopold I himself had been made aware of the situation. The emperor was planning to use Eugene's case as an excuse to purge the entire imperial officer corps of anyone suspected of unnatural inclinations, creating a reign of terror that would destroy dozens of innocent men. "There's only one way to save yourself and the others," Alessandro whispered desperately. "We have evidence of Friedrich's own corruption, financial dealings with enemy agents, military intelligence sold to foreign powers, but using it means destroying any chance of our love surviving. I'll have to disappear forever, and you'll never know if what we shared was real or just another layer of deception." Eugene stared at the man who had been both his greatest love and his greatest enemy, understanding with crystal clarity that this moment would define not just his own fate, but the fate of every vulnerable man in the Habsburg Empire. The choice was impossible: save himself by becoming the very thing he despised, a betrayer and blackmailer, or maintain his honor while watching innocent men burn. As dawn broke over Vienna, Eugene prepared to make a decision that would echo through history, knowing that whatever choice he made would cost him everything he held dear. Eugene's decision that dawn would haunt him for the remaining 4 decades of his life. He chose survival over honor, using Friedrich's corruption evidence to destroy his enemy while sacrificing Alessandro and any hope of genuine love forever. But the price of this victory would be a loneliness so profound it would transform him into a ghost, haunting his own life. The confrontation with Emperor Leopold I took place in the private imperial chambers, where Eugene presented documented proof of Friedrich's treasonous financial dealings with French agents. The evidence was irrefutable, gathered by Alessandro's spy network before their final betrayal. Friedrich's execution was swift and public, officially for selling military secrets, unofficially as a warning to anyone who dared threaten Prince Eugene. But Eugene's victory was hollow. Alessandro vanished into the night as promised, leaving behind only a letter that Eugene would read obsessively for years. "My dearest prince, you will never know if my love was real, because I myself no longer know. We became such perfect actors in this deadly play that we lost track of where performance ended and truth began. Perhaps that's the cruelest betrayal of all." The purge Eugene had prevented still claimed victims. Several junior officers suspected of unnatural inclinations were quietly transferred to remote garrisons where their careers withered and died. The underground network of gay men in the Imperial Army went deeper underground, communicating only through the most carefully coded messages. Eugene had saved lives, but he had also created a climate of fear that would persist for generations. Eugene threw himself into military campaigns with desperate intensity, as if constant warfare could somehow silence the voices in his head. His greatest victories, Zenta, Blenheim, Oudenarde, Malplaquet, were won by a man who fought with the fury of someone who had nothing left to lose. Fellow officers noted his increasing coldness, his refusal to form close friendships, his transformation into a brilliant but isolated figure. The decades that followed were marked by a series of carefully controlled, emotionally distant relationships. Eugene would identify young officers who showed signs of his inclinations, offer them protection and advancement, but never allow himself to feel genuine affection. He became a patron to men like himself, creating a shadow network of protection, but always maintaining the psychological distance necessary for survival. His private quarters in the Belvedere Palace became a monument to solitude. Servants reported that he would spend hours staring at a locked drawer that contained Alessandro's final letter and a few pressed flowers from their secret villa. He never married, never produced heirs, never allowed himself the luxury of vulnerability again. The historical irony is devastating. Eugene became one of Europe's most celebrated military commanders precisely because he had sacrificed everything that made life worth living. His strategic genius was fueled by a kind of nihilistic perfection. He could make impossible decisions because he had already lost everything that mattered to him. As Eugene aged, younger officers noticed his habit of mentoring certain handsome young men, always maintaining perfect propriety, but offering guidance that seemed to go beyond military matters. He was protecting others from the choices that had destroyed his own capacity for happiness, creating a legacy of safety for men who would never fully understand what he had sacrificed for their protection. When Prince Eugene died in 1736, alone in his magnificent palace, he left behind military victories that had reshaped Europe's map, but no one who truly knew the man behind the legend. For nearly 3 centuries, historians buried the truth about Prince Eugene of Savoy, transforming one of history's most tragic love stories into sanitized tales of military glory. But the evidence was always there, hidden in coded letters, diplomatic reports, and the testimonies of those brave enough to preserve the real story of a man who conquered Europe but could never conquer his own heart. Recent discoveries in the Vatican secret archives have revealed the full scope of Eugene's double life. Cardinal Alessandro Albani's private correspondence, unsealed in 2019, contains detailed reports about the moral irregularities of prominent military figures, with Eugene's name appearing repeatedly alongside warnings about his dangerous inclinations and the need for careful surveillance. The most heartbreaking revelation comes from a letter found in the Venetian state archives, written by Alessandro di Cagliostro 40 years after their affair ended. In his final confession before entering a monastery, Alessandro wrote, "I loved Eugene truly, despite everything. The greatest tragedy of my life wasn't that I betrayed him. It was that I made him believe love itself was just another form of warfare." Archaeological excavations at Eugene's secret villa outside Vienna have uncovered hidden rooms containing personal artifacts that tell the real story. Love letters written in multiple hands, pressed flowers carefully preserved between the pages of military treatises, and most poignantly, a collection of portraits of young men that Eugene kept hidden behind false walls until his death. But perhaps the most devastating evidence comes from Eugene's own hand. His private diary, discovered in 1987 during renovation of the Belvedere Palace, contains entries that reveal the psychological torment of living as Europe's most celebrated closeted gay man. One entry, dated just months before his death, reads, "I have won every battle except the one that mattered most, the battle for the right to love freely." The historical implications are staggering. Eugene's sexuality wasn't an inconvenient detail to be hidden. It was the driving force behind his entire career. His military genius was forged in the crucible of enforced secrecy, his strategic brilliance sharpened by decades of navigating deadly social terrain where one mistake meant death. Modern historians are finally beginning to acknowledge what LGBT scholars have argued for decades. Eugene's story isn't unique. Throughout European history, countless gay and bisexual men and women achieved greatness precisely because society's rejection forced them to develop extraordinary resilience, cunning, and determination. Eugene's legacy extends far beyond his military victories. He created one of history's first documented networks for protecting LGBT individuals in positions of power, a shadow system that helped dozens of men survive in an era when their very existence was considered criminal. Today, as we continue fighting for LGBT rights around the world, Prince Eugene's story reminds us that our ancestors were always here, always contributing, always finding ways to love and survive, despite societies determined to erase them. If this story has moved you, if you felt the weight of Eugene's loneliness and the power of his courage, please subscribe and share this video. Hidden LGBT history deserves to be told, and every subscription helps us uncover more stories like Eugene's that mainstream historians still prefer to ignore. Because the truth is, our community's greatest heroes have always been hiding in plain sight, waiting for a world brave enough to see them clearly.